So this is a long anticipated conversation with Adrienne Everheart. I'm so glad to have you here.
Hey, I'm so happy to be on your show. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, welcome. So you are a feminine energy expert, and I would like you to share what is feminine energy?
Oh my goodness, that's such a big question. For me, feminine energy it's also about masculine energy. It's about having two energies in your body, a feminine energy, which is warm, receiving, intuitive, relaxed, joyful, and having a masculine energy, which is about getting it done, solving problems and making things happen, being in charge, managing. And feminine energy for me has been mostly about rediscovering my inner girl, who I am as a woman, as a girl inside that I really repressed for years because my masculine energy just got so much more stuff done. And I was just much more in my masculine energy than my feminine receiving energy.
Yeah, I think that's common. We live in this world where I feel like societal cues have brought us off course into promoting masculine energy for women. So, what have you observed in your experience working with hundreds, if not thousands, of women? And why, in particular, is it so important to keep a healthy dynamic in your relationships for women to embrace the divine feminine within themselves?
Well, to be just kind of old fashioned sounding, it works. It really works. We are going to function best when we're feeling good from the inside out. And we're going to feel good about ourselves. Our partner's going to feel good about themselves if they're feeling important, loved, and cherished with what they're doing. And what I had discovered was in my relationship, I was focusing more on fixing what was wrong and really picking out what was wrong with my partner. It's like my partner was a project and I was the project manager.
Mm.
And that was 100% masculine energy, fixing, solving, doing, instead of allowing my partner to do for me and allowing him to be in his masculine energy. And so, it made so much sense these years prior in my life. I had all of these feminine energy men who were wonderful people, but very relaxed, not the most confident, not really go-getters, not aggressive, especially when it came to the bedroom, just not wanting to, initiate and things like this. And they were wonderful people, but they were just men in their feminine energy because I was mostly in my masculine energy. The flip side of that is if a woman's in her masculine energy and doing it and getting things done and managing the husband, managing the whole household, being in charge of it all, it's exhausting, right? You don't feel good. And then your partner, he doesn't feel like the man anymore.
Mm.
And that's usually when you find out one day he's like, I'm leaving. I don't want to do this anymore. And he can't really give you a specific, except that ultimately he doesn't really feel like a man anymore. And so he leaves the relationship to go feel like a man. And when you balance these energies, you get back in touch with what it means to just have balance in your life. You get a little better understanding of feeling good for yourself because this work begins and ends with you. You feel good for yourself. And a byproduct is your partner feels really good as well.
Right? Yeah, those are such great points. And I think many women, especially those of us that have been successful professionally, we are in that more of our masculine energy. Like I was a physician in the military around men all the time. So I feel like my masculine energy was very strong and I was bringing that home for a long period of time. And it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel aligned vibrationally, yet it becomes this sort of habitual thing. And then I find now, and I'd like your opinion on this, that even being in my feminine energy at work, it's more empowering because the feminine complements the masculine. It doesn't compete with the masculine. And I don't feel like women even need to be in their masculine in a work environment to be powerful. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, such a good topic. I get this question so often because being in your feminine energy doesn't mean you're a doormat. It doesn't mean that you get to play dumb and while a guy mansplains. That's not what it's about. It's really about I'm willing to just lean back and I'm still going to focus on what's important for me, how I'm feeling in my body. And you'll begin to discover that there are things you're doing in the office, there are things you're doing at home, there are things you're doing with your children that don't feel good. And you begin to resonate with, like, why is this not feeling good to me? And when you can become more aware of just what am I feeling versus is this masculine, is this feminine, you'll align naturally with your feminine energy, because feminine energy is about getting better at feeling instead of getting better at doing. So we will happily allow men to do all the doing that they want to do because it will make our lives so much easier and so much more relaxed, right? And so at work, if you can begin to just make this adjustment of what am I feeling like right now? How does this feel in my body? And you can really begin to discern when you're wanting to take action and control something instead of, I'm just going to lean back and ask my heart what I should do right now. I'm going to take this couple of minutes and just breathe into my body. I'm going to be a girl. I'm going to be this powerful dynamite woman and feel, instead of your brain will instantly jump to a conclusion and offer you a solution.
Right.
That's masculine energy. And that's usually where a man in the office will pick up on that real quick. He'll sense it. And you'll be like, I always say, it's like two rams butting heads. And it'll be that way at work. It'll be that way in a relationship too.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So it's a lot easier said than done, I think. So how can a woman practice being in her feminine? I mean, you could say, okay, how does this feel? But I think a lot of times our brain is still in high beta mode, and, our brain waves are just so used to thinking and not feeling. Are there any techniques that you have that you can recommend for someone to check in and say, this doesn't align with me. I feel like I would like to do this. And that's another way to approach,
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Well, you just said something. You said, I feel like I want to do this. So that's masculine energy because you're wanting to take action with that feeling. And a good way to get grounded back in your body, rediscover your inner girl, two things. First, I want you all to time travel a little bit and kind of figure out, when did I start to stuff my feelings down? Like, when did it start to happen? For most of us, it happens at a very young age. For me, the memory that popped up first in my head was I was at the zoo with my parents. I was a little kid running, having fun. I fell down, I skinned my knee. And my mom rushed over to me, and it was pretty bad, I remember. And I knew if I started to cry that I would upset my dad, I would upset my mom, I would make this big scene. So I felt all the, energy in me surging. And I just, as a little kid, I just breathed and breathed. And my mom was like, you're so grown up. Look, how well you're handling skinning your knee. And I'm fighting back these tears. And my dad seemed impressed with how well I was handling it. And there's this very popular video that went viral of a little girl who had slammed her finger in a door or something, and the mom was getting her to breathe and say all these affirmations. And I was like, no, no, no. Like, you want to feel what you're feeling. If you want to cry, you cry. If you want to be angry for a few minutes at the world, be angry. You've got to reconnect with your body, because at some point, someone rewarded you for shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So step one, get in touch with that wounded inner girl, because she's there. She hasn't gone anywhere. And then step two, you want to begin to experiment with how things feel. And this can be with the skin on your arm. You can pinch and feel this and go, what do I really feel when I pinch my arm? Or what do I really feel when I touch my hair? How does it feel to me? Or when you eat food, because we all have to eat a couple of times a day, and get in touch with, like, when I bite into this apple, how would I describe it? How does it feel to me? So you want to practice, of course, when you're not under, stress with your partner, or you're at work or whatever it may be, and go to fabric shops and feel all the different fabrics. Begin to touch surfaces, and you'll really get that tactile conversation linked to what you feel in your body. When I first started doing this, I threw out so much clothes from my closet because I didn't realize I was in all of these uncomfortable clothes. And with tags and things that bothered me, I threw out all my high heels. And someone might think, well, aren't high heels feminine? Well, they're hurting your feet. No, because you're not feeling good. And I had memories of being a little girl, of being in like itchy dresses and tags that I didn't like. And, doing things like, oh, there's your aunt and uncle that you haven't seen in 5 years. Go hug them. Well, I don't want to hug them. And so as a kid, we were having to eat food we didn't like, hug people, or do things we didn't want to do. You were rewarded for not being in your body. So you got to get back in touch with being in your body. Start with really subtle, soft ways. And this goes for men too. This goes for a lot of guys who were brought up in families where they were just not allowed to talk about or express any emotion at all. They have feminine energy as well. Get in touch with it. However feels comfortable and natural for them to get back in touch with what it feels like to have a tactile sensation in their body and experience pleasure just internally, your own senses and feelings.
Right. And that's ultimately so sexy about a man, when has masculine traits, yet he's also able to fully embrace who he is and what he feels.
It sounds like you have a little experience with this. Do you want to tell us like what it's like, or I'm curious.
I more observe. I really enjoy observing, and I've listened to an amazing YouTube channel. So we'll have that link in the show notes for everyone to tune in. And I also love reading the comments on the side. And one of the themes I really notice in the comments is, you talk about feminine energy, and then what I'm reading on the side is, but what if he's not responding? What if he's not,
Right.
and it's those are masculine questions, right? So how do we as women who have a habit of being in our masculine energy, right? You talked about embracing the feminine energy, which to me sounds like it's the ultimate of really living in the moment and just feeling what's present in front of you, which is actually quite beautiful when you're there in that moment and you can do that.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to embrace the feminine and learn more of your feminine ways, and increase the feminine energy, and we're not getting rid of our masculine energy, but we have both. We're trying to live in our feminine a little bit more, and then also be patient and allow the man to do what he needs to do. How read that little dance that men and women do regarding, coming together and moving apart, having a woman learn to receive.
Yeah. Yeah. And two things. Yeah, the comments on my YouTube channel are sometimes just a riot. We have a lot of fun there. It feels wonderful for a man to know what a woman is feeling in her body. I just want to make sure we touch on that, because when you can tell a man something positive you're feeling in your body, they will really tune into you. They want to know what we're feeling in our bodies. They are really curious. Like if you pipe up and talk about what's going on inside of you in a positive way, they're really going to listen. And I mean, I don't know how many of you have experience with just telling your husband or boyfriend, like, oh, I'm having really bad cramps. They'll get really empathetic all of a sudden because it's going on in your body. Maybe not always, but they're connecting with your body, and that's what they want. That's why they're with you. That's why they're with a woman and they're connecting with you. So when you are in a situation where a man isn't responding the way you're hoping he would have, and you're using all your feminine energy tools, and you're doing, you're feeling attractive and grounded and soft and feminine in your body, and the guy is just like, whatever. That's the most disappointing part, is accepting a man's no. Accepting that I'm just not the right person for this man. It's not connecting, and it's not working in that. I don't want to have to change myself for him to like me or be with me. And it's just not linking up. It's just accepting that no. And it takes a lot of courage to understand that this isn't the right guy for me. But, more than that, it's an opportunity for you to explore that maybe I need to start looking into a different type of guy and date outside my comfort zone. I call that the non-applicable or non-applicable man, which is a man that, my husband was this man. He had none of the features or on paper that I was looking for or that I was accustomed to. He was a completely different type of man. And I decided to just date him 5 times. And by the 5th date, I was feeling like I was falling in love with this person, So yeah, it's hard to accept the no, that I'm just not linking up with this guy. But remember, a man will move mountains to be with you. If he wants you, he will stop at nothing to be with you. And you have to trust that. And really get honest with yourself. Do I really want to do the work for him? Do I really, really want to do the work for him and, make this relationship work for us? Do I want to be that person? Usually when I ask women that question, the answer is no.
Right. That's a beautiful, beautiful message. And I hope that many of you replay that, because sometimes we don't want to hear that. And we need to hear that, because the universe is showing us that that person may not be the best one for me. We have something better waiting for us. And I hear a lot that people will say, I don't feel chemistry the first time I meet someone. So what I'm hearing you say, that you sometimes have to change your algorithm, maybe, and give people a chance. So you believe that you can fall in love with someone if you don't feel chemistry and that spark right away, if you open your heart to the possibilities.
Absolutely. In fact, you'll feel something stronger than what you thought love was with previous partners. Because in our 20s, especially, teens and into our 20s, we're like, oh, I get this feeling, and it's this rush. And you're fortunate enough to have a lot of options and a lot of boyfriends, and we're all young and we can experiment with this. But when you get older, it changes. The game changes, but we're still in the mindset that it should feel like this young, passionate, chemistry, filled love. And those relationships didn't work out for a reason. And you're at a different phase in your life. You're in a different place in your life. Your values and your long-term goals are very different than they were then. So we're now at a place where we want to find somebody who fits into our life, makes our life comfortable, and what they do for us, what they give us. Remember, the man is the one giving. We are the ones receiving. And the amount of work that you really have to do in a relationship to keep your partner happy is none, really none. You're just there to receive. And when you're in receiving mode and you're in this joyful place of feminine energy, when your partner does do something good for you, like, just picks up your napkin off the floor, you can let them know how it feels. And that fuels that man. Letting him know how wonderful you feel in that moment fuels him. And he feels good. He feels like a man. He feels confident and strong. Yes, at first you had to practice it to get back into learning how to do this. But now that you're doing it, it's happening organically. And with the partner that we feel chemistry with, this sometimes can't happen because the chemistry is what's absorbing all of our attention and energy.
Mm.
Right. That intense feeling and attraction that we're forgetting about all these little things that make up life. Like, are you going to be there for me when I get sick? Are you reliable? Do you really, really want to be here with me? Do you want to cook dinner every night together? Do you want to travel together? Do you want to build a garden together? Will you binge watch a Netflix show with me, several times a month or whatever? What really is life about into your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s? What has your life really become important? So what happened with the man who became my husband is that, here was this guy who showed up who didn't have the familiarity or even the familiar dysfunction that I was used to. I wasn't going to be the one running the relationship. And I didn't want to be the one running the relationship. It's exhausting. I want to be able to be a girl and experience life and garden and do my goals and hobbies. I don't want to be running and managing a relationship. So when I met him, we had some energy exchanges that felt very negative to me at first because they threatened my inner boy. And so I felt like, oh, it's not going to work out with this guy because my inner boy was threatened. And then the part of me that was so accustomed to having a type was like, well, he's so fair skinned and has freckles and you like darker men and you're not attracted to that, but then he just kept coming around and picking up Thai food and wanting to walk my dogs with me. And then I remember one day he rang me up and I was like, I'm having trouble with my windows. Like I couldn't get this window to close in my house. And he was like, well, I'll be right there. And he came over and he was fixing my window. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what is happening here? Like, this is what it's about. And the love, the chemistry just evolved naturally. But at first, no, like I thought I was going to go out with him a couple times, and I even like at one point broke up with him. I was like, I don't want to see you anymore. And then later I was like, why did I do this? This is a perfectly good guy I'm throwing away here. So fortunately we were able to work it out. But yeah, that guy's not going to feel comfortable and familiar for a reason. It's because he's new and different, and he's probably very much in his masculine energy.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your beautiful personal story. I love that. And I think there's so many points to get out of that. You talked about being attracted to dysfunction, right? And if we all take a step back and reflect on our lives, often that strong, passionate chemistry we feel is us trying to relive or fix what happened in our childhood with a parent, right? So we're attracted to certain types. So it's really essential to look at the big picture like you're describing here and learn to maybe pay attention to the things that matter most in a long-term relationship. And with that being said, I'd really like you to touch on the difference between dating versus being in a relationship, because there's often a lot of confusion between the two. For both parties.
Yeah. I love what you said about healing that inner wounded part of ourselves that drives us to make choices. One of the big things I teach in my programs is talking to that inner part and saying, I get to choose who I love and who I don't love. Not you. That's really a big one, a deep one, maybe another podcast sometime. But I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
It's okay. The difference between dating versus being in a relationship.
Oh, yes.
Maybe touch on quantum dating if you can.
Yeah, just dating is very different than being in a relationship. So there are 4 things. There's dating, I'm just dating him. There's being in a relationship. There's quantum dating. And then there are the terms and conditions. So when you're just dating a person, we're used to, hey, I'm dating this one guy. We go out, we're going out regularly, things work. And then before you know it, you're spending the night over at each other's houses. You're going to his cousin's wedding and he's, coming to your family reunion, and you find yourself in a relationship. Meanwhile, no one has discussed if this is a relationship. And things go wrong at that 3-month point of dating. Usually that's when things get very real. I don't mean they go wrong, they get real. You'll see a different side of your partner. It'll go from blissful to experiencing challenges. We've all been there. So when you quantum date, I talk about my quantum 5. And there's always going to be like this number one guy that we really like and we want to be with. I certainly had one even when I was dating my husband, Jeff, before we got married. There was another guy I wanted to be with. Then there was the second guy, the kind of runner up, the one who wants to date you. He's calling, he's making dates with you, he's making plans with you all the time. Then there's a third guy that is somewhere between the first guy and the second guy, And then these other 2 guys, we're now at 5. They are just men that you're meeting for coffee or communicating with on an online dating app, and you're practicing your tools with. So at some point, one of these 5 men, you may find the guy that you've met for coffee recently gets bumped up to the number 3 spot, and that the number 2 guy gets bumped up to the number 1 spot. It evolves and changes because all you're doing is just dating them. You're just dating. You're getting to know them. You're meeting them for dinner. You're seeing how they handle conflict. They are on audition for you. And you're getting to practice with them because every single man that you meet in this quantum 5 is going to trigger you. They're going to bother you and bug you in some way. And that's your opportunity to do what I call move up a tier, which is you experience something negative, or it could be something positive, and you have used your feminine energy tools to handle it, to deal with it. You've been in your body and you've dealt with it. And then what happens is you move up a tier and you really don't experience that anymore. Like I have clients that would get, pornographic pictures sent from random guys. And I'm like, you've got to face this head on. You've got to move up that tier. And then suddenly it just stops. They just don't receive energy from that type of man anymore. Mm-hmm. And of course, it works in so many other ways. So you've got your quantum 5, you're dating. Eventually, one man will step up and ask you to be in a relationship. If he doesn't, and he's your number 1, and you're seeing him, and he is who you're having an intimate relationship with that is exclusive. So remember, you can date, but I highly suggest you only have one intimate relationship at a time. So that would be sexual exclusivity. But your number 1 guy, you can ask him, you say, hey, where do you see us going? And just see what his answer is, see what his response is. And that's going to tell you, that's a good way to open up. Do we want to be in a relationship or not? And if he says, yeah, you're my girlfriend, I want you to be with me. I don't want you to date anybody else. Well, at that point, you can discuss the terms and conditions of being in a relationship, which are how often will we see each other? Who will, how will we pay for things? Do we want to travel? Who will sleep over at whom's house? And also it's really important to let a man know if you want to be a wife one day. And you're able to have these conversations up front, no fear if the guy gets scared and runs away. Because if he gets scared and runs away, he got to accept his no, right? And if you let a man know, I suggest to my clients on the first date, you're having a conversation with a man and he's like, well, what are you looking for? You can say, well, I want to be a wife one day. That's how I feel. I want to be married. I want to be a wife one day, and own it. This is nothing that we feel we need to hide for fear of scaring a man. You want to be a wife one day, own it like a rock star. That's feminine energy. I am not afraid to feel what I'm feeling and say it. Sometimes the guy will say, whoa, like immediately this year, what are you saying? And you can always joke. You can move up that tier and say, oh, is this a proposal? Right? You can have fun with it because it's no longer this taboo subject of how you feel. So you got your quantum 5, You're dating until someone puts an offer on the table or you have that conversation. Where do you see us going? You're going to find out real quick if he wants to be in a relationship or not. But the man has to say the words. He has to say, I want to be in a relationship with you. This is not something that you just accidentally fall into. You have to get clarity. That is one of your feminine energy superpowers, is clarity.
That's so funny that you just said clarity, because I'm thinking in my mind, okay, I literally thought of the word clarity, and I'm thinking, okay, really clarity is the most important, to understand what you want. And then I love how you said you're interviewing them, right? Because many times both men and women go into a date or, a relationship trying to prove themselves to the other person, when in actuality, if you have clarity on what aligns with you, what your standards are, then it becomes a lot more clear as a neutral observer to see, does that person align with what I'm looking for in a relationship? And no, they don't. They can step away. My ego is not going to get in the way and be offended, because it's a gift that they're stepping away, because now I have the opportunity to attract someone who's in my highest and best.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I call it their own audition for you. I mean, we've all seen American Idol or shows like this. They either got it or they don't. And that's what you're there to see, if it's just what you're looking for. But understand it can take, and I highly suggest, more than one date to find out if that person, because otherwise I would not be a happily married woman today. I would have just dismissed my husband. I have such a dismissive attitude when it came to people. And then if they just were not what I was looking for, dismissive. I wouldn't even talk to him on a dating app, In fact, my husband, excuse me, my husband was when he first messaged me on our dating app, it went directly to my trash box, because I had a filter. I had a filter that said, if you were in this filter and you wrote to me, it would go to my trash. And I was like, who's in my trash? And I click, and here's this beautiful email from this person.
Right? Exact same thing. Really good friends, Lisa and Mark, who I recently visited in San Diego. And they had met on Match.com about 10 years ago. And he was in her trash. And she was bored one night, went into the trash, and he was, outside of her very specific age range by maybe 2 months. And she's like, this guy's way better than all the other guys. So she gave him an opportunity, and happily married 10 years later. So I think
So
that,
exciting.
right, it's really important to think outside and give yourself more than one date, because I think it's so easy for so many of us to disregard, not give them another chance when we don't really even know them.
Yeah. Yeah. The man who was my first husband, I talk about him openly in my programs, my videos, my work. Loved this man, still love this man. Wonderful human. When I first met him, he was about 2 inches shorter. I'm sure he still is. He was 2 inches shorter. I'm a really tall girl, and I was like, no, but we were dating. We were just dating. I was getting to know him. And what happened was I fell very ill suddenly with an autoimmune condition. And I mean, I was in the hospital for weeks. And this person slept by my side every night in the hospital. This guy who was 2 inches shorter than me, that I was so easy to dismiss, paid for my hospital bills, took care of me. I mean, it's just amazing. Yeah, it's really breathtaking how we package a person. They're supposed to fit in this package or mold to make us happy. And height, weight, career, even political beliefs, it really doesn't have to have much to do with how a person treats you, treats your heart, loves you, cares for you, and provides for you.
Beautiful. So I do have a fair number of male listeners. So I'd love to get your advice for those men listening who are in or want to be in a relationship, to help support their women to embrace their feminine energy.
Yeah. The big thing is, I think that women in their masculine energy will, they're not very good listeners. They think they're listening. They think they've got it all figured out, right?
Mhm.
But they're not creating space to hear one another. And then the guy will feel challenged from that and he'll interrupt his wife or partner a lot. And so I think one of the best places you could start with your partner, um, especially if you have a relationship that kind of can bicker or get intense, is just first allow her space and then let her know, say, babe, I've heard you and this is important and I've heard you, but can you take a minute and just hear me out? I don't feel like a man when I
Mhm.
can't get listened to. And it's okay to say that. I've said that to my husband. I'm like, I'm not feeling like a good girl right now. It's a dangerous one to say, but I think a man can very much say, I'm not feeling like much of a man right now. And that'll get a woman to her core because
Yeah.
we know what that means. And I remember, once in college, I had gotten so anxious about this guy asking me out to the dance that I finally asked him, and he said, "Why did you do this? I had this whole thing planned and you just got right in front of me with it." Right? And so a woman can be urgent and we can want to speed up that process, and men are very slow moving. But when that guy let me know, like, you interrupted my process of being a guy. Oh, wow, did that ever get me? I really understood the importance that you have to let a man be a guy. So, guys, don't be afraid to tell your partner, I don't feel like much of a man here. I don't feel like I'm the man right now. Feel free to say that and just be sincere. Don't try to control the outcome, but be sincere with that. That's how you're feeling.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, what are your thoughts on women asking men out versus men asking women out? Because I was just listening to a Modern Wisdom podcast that I recently discovered. Chris Williamson, I think his name is, and he mentioned a high percentage of men don't ever get asked out by women. And
Right.
I messaged him and I said, well, I feel like it throws the dynamic off in the relationship. And, as a woman, I will present myself as receptive and welcoming and inviting with my body language. Yet I would prefer that a man.
Men are incredibly insecure. Sorry to all the male listeners, but they may know it. They're insecure. Women are insecure, but men are so afraid of getting shot down.
Mhm.
And so what I really suggest is, I don't really think there's anything wrong with letting a guy know you're interested in meeting him for a cup of coffee.
And how would you do that in a feminine way?
Okay, well, let's say you're at you're at an event. It could be even like a business event. Let's just imagine, and you've been talking with a group of guys, and one you've really connected with, and you're able to let him know, this has been intriguing. This has been interesting. It would feel so good to meet for a coffee sometime. What do you think?
Mm.
So when you say, what do you think? The ball's in his court. You've just let him know how you feel. Right. So I say this to my husband all the time. A cup of coffee would feel so nice. What do you think? He goes, I can go get you one. Right. So I feel this conversation has felt so fun to me. I felt so relaxed having this conversation. It feels so good to get together and have a cup of coffee. What do you think? And you'll know then, if he can put the energy into meeting you for a coffee, that he's interested.
Mhm.
Right. Um, but yeah, I think it's okay to let a man know how you're feeling. What do you think? And see if he can then do the masculine energy job of putting in the effort and action to pursue you.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I have two sons, and I often tell them, I say, worst thing that you can do if you tell a girl you like her and you want to go out with her is to make her day and flatter her. I said, that's the worst case scenario. And that's kind of how I approach dating is The worst case scenario is you learn something interesting from a new person or make a new friend.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people put too much emphasis on the all or nothing sort of mentality because every
Yeah.
is a gift, right?
Yeah. Every man brings you a message. They're either a messenger or they're a mirror.
Mm.
Yeah, they're going to mirror back something about you that you don't want to see. Or they're going to bring you a message that this is your opportunity to grow in a new direction. Or sometimes they do a little bit of both.
Can you
And yeah. Mhm.
give some examples of the mirror, some common themes that you see with your clients?
Oh. Well, my mind immediately jumped to just something I had when Jeff and I were apart. Like before we were married, we had 3 really painful breakups. And I had just started dabbling in feminine energy and kind of figuring this out and piecing it together. And during one of the breakups, I had started quantum dating and I was dating a man who just I'll never forget. He he was doing something that I used to do. He was showing a behavior that I used to do. And I was immersed enough in feminine energy that I had my observer glasses on and I wasn't judging him, but I was able to watch him. And I got to see kind of this behavior that, hold on, I got to reach for the word. It was obnoxious behavior. He was being obnoxious. And I realized how I must appear to other men when I'm behaving like this. And so that guy was mirroring to me back a behavior that I would do without even thinking about it. Because of course there's nothing wrong with me, right? But he was able to mirror it back. And I was like, oh gosh, I got work to do in this area of my life. Which meant, you know, trying to understand what are my motives. And I found out that one of my motives I had was I felt like it was my job to entertain.
Oh, okay.
Mhm. And sometimes when you have the job of entertaining, you come across as obnoxious.
Mm.
So I was able to give myself a break from feeling like I needed to entertain every minute and tell a story and have a whatever about every condiment in my refrigerator, which is what this guy was doing. He was going through every condiment in my refrigerator, making a comment about it. And that's exactly the type of thing I used to do. It was like entertaining and I thought I was being cute and it was just irritating in a relationship. So that was a good example of mirror. A message is usually when you meet a person and you know, you might feel intense feelings for them. You might feel like this person this person is really who you're meant to be with and you connect with, but it just doesn't work out for them. And so the message in that situation is, what is it you really love and like about them? You know, was it their energy? Was it how they speak? Was it their, you know, how they handled a particular situation or how their skin smelled or whatever? But you want to extract from that the things that felt really, really good. And you want to make a list of those things because that is your message. That goes into your new man manifesto. That's what I want to attract in my life.
Okay, so for those single people listening, what do you find is a successful or one of the better ways to meet nowadays? Because things have changed so much with COVID and restrictions. And I even find when I'm out and about socially, people aren't making contact and interacting as much. So that serendipitous sort of meeting seems a little bit more difficult than it had been prior.
You know, and I'm so glad you said for the single people, because even the comment that I just made about extracting those qualities that you want, you can do that with your current partner. You can build on it. You can build on those positives. So that's always an option for you. But being single today has got to be really difficult. There are some really great apps out there. There are apps that, verify your career and your, what school you went to and things like this. So you'll attract, more like-minded people. But of course, remember, that doesn't mean that it's going to be a match. I have a client right now that works with Tesla, whose longtime partner works for UPS. Still wonderful companies on both ends, but you have to understand, she never thought that she would be falling for, um, you know, a manager at UPS, right? She thought she would be with another scientist. So when you're out and about, you want to keep that energy open. Before you even step out of your car or get out of the subway or the bus, I always tell everyone you want to unzip starting at the top of your neck, unzip all the way down to about a little above your navel. Open that area with your imagination and just expose your red beating heart.
Mhm.
Expose your chest, peel back all your layers, and practice walking around with your heart out there for everyone to see.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you experience this. If you think about it, you'll begin to feel very vulnerable and very exposed.
I love receiving arrows. You talk about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So when you're in this vulnerable place and you've got your heart open and you're open to receiving, and you can even say, like, I am open to receiving, universe. I am open to finding my husband, if he's out there, the man or the next man I'm meant to be with or meet. I'm open. I'm ready. Send it. I'm ready, and confidently walk out and know that, it could be a butterfly effect thing. You might meet one person who introduces you to another person, but no matter a man's age, um, clothing, social status, if he sends you an arrow and he says, "Hey, pretty lady," oh, hello, thank you. And you just keep walking and you just keep going, but you're receiving it. You don't have to, respond and have a long conversation, but he's literally sending you this arrow, like little Cupid's arrow, and you are grabbing that arrow out of the sky and you're putting it in your quiver. You are really gathering all this more feminine energy, ammunition. And so the more you receive, the more you have, the more you get, the more and more arrows you'll get. And usually it starts out with guys that are really, really not our types. There's a great YouTube video I have out there that I talk about how I wanted to receive, and I went out and this guy in sweatpants wanted to wash my car, but I was like, okay, go ahead. I was at the car wash. I let him wash my car. I received. And then I ran all these errands, and the guys were kind of like getting better and better as far as like what I was attracted to and what I was feeling drawn to. And then by the final stop I made, this hulking, beautiful Adonis creature of a man was just like dropping everything to open a door for me and say, well, hello there, and be very gracious to me. So receiving arrows absolutely works. Like, it just builds upon itself and it feels really good, right?
It's such a beautiful way to move around the world for men and women. And it feels to me that it's not necessarily I'm always getting hit on, but it's an awareness and a consideration and someone feeling the energy. So even if it's opening a door, acknowledging and appreciating, or the other day I was walking in a coffee shop and this man looked up and saw me, moved a chair away so I can continue down the aisle. And I said, "Oh, thank you, how sweet," And
Mm-hmm.
I think he and I both brought that energy even into another relationship, right? It's not that he's necessarily hitting on me and trying to flirt with me, a consideration and awareness and a respect for the other person, right? And I love moving about the world that way. I think it adds so much value and love.
Jennifer, I love that you've just said getting hit on.
Yeah. I knew you were going to pick that out.
Yeah, because girls have asked me, they're like, well, if, you're okay with receiving arrows. That means Jeff is sending other women arrows. And I'm like, well, of course.
Mhm.
To deny that we don't find other people attractive or want to be helpful or want to comment or want to participate with another human, um, it's just denying ourselves a really vital part of being a human. It doesn't mean you go to a hotel together. It doesn't mean you start having this flirty, conversation over private text. It just means in this moment, I'm sending and receiving. And it can happen at any age. We've all seen men who are much older, I had a gentleman one time just grab me by my elbow and guide me through a door once, a much older gentleman, put his hand on me. That's his generation. And that was his way of being chivalrous and masculine and feeling important. And I let him know, oh, thank you. I could got through the door just fine, but but it was this wonderful moment to exchange with any age. We've all seen women who are, much older, but still very feminine. So age doesn't matter, height, weight, status, clothing. It's about that energy, that receiving and in giving energy. So men want to pursue, women receive. A woman can't receive if she's leaning forward and pursuing. And men are way more energetically sensitive than we give them credit for. So they can know we're pursuing them. Even mentally, they can feel it.
They can. They really, really. It's amazing. Even if I have my energy off of someone, that's when I'll receive a text sometimes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on the last thing because while I have you, I know we're up on time. And this isn't a short topic, but do your best to cover what you can. So just say that a man and a woman are in a relationship and things are going well. They reviewed the terms and agreements and they've been having a wonderful relationship. And then somewhere around 6 months per se, let's say that the man pulls away. So what are some of the reasons why a man might pull away, and how should a woman or should a woman not respond in order to keep that beautiful dance we want going?
Oh, I love this question because it happens. It happens all the time. I hear about it. And this is why you want to have the terms and agreements. Part of the terms and agreements were we were going to see each other 4 days a week. You know, are you still seeing each other the number of days per week that you said you would? If he's coming over and dating you, you're getting together those certain number of days a week. Because that's usually how a man first withdraws. He begins to avoid the relationship. Um, get clarity. I've noticed something's changed and I'm curious how you feel.
So when
Most guys, go ahead.
what you just said is very different from saying, I want to get this point across to the listeners. So what you just said, if you could repeat it, is very different from saying, our terms of agreement say blah, 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 and you're not doing this and that and the other. And so extrapolate on that a little bit.
I am so happy you said that because I am sometimes just assuming people are going to understand the terms and agreements are something that you don't, it's not a legal document you hold over his head, right?
And it's not, it's energetically, a demand comes across a lot differently than what you're saying.
Exactly. Exactly. You're just like, this has changed. We agreed upon it. What's happened? Um, and if it's changed, you want to have an open conversation. And a lot of times a man pulls away after 6 months because the relationship is getting real. He is having a lot of intense feelings about you and he doesn't know what to do. And you want to give this a couple of, weeks to play out, but it is not something that you sit back and wait months for him to figure out, especially if the relationship's getting neglected and you're not seeing each other as much. That's when you draw the line and you say, we need to talk. We're not seeing each other as much. I feel like something's changed. Is there something I need to know? Is there something I should know?
I love how you neutrally state the obvious and then throw it back in his court and let him become the decision maker. So at what point, because you mentioned earlier how men are slower moving, they plan, they may need to uh, have a little bit of time and space to work through their emotions. At what point, and this is going to vary depending on personalities, of course, and relationships, but I mean, are we looking at a week? Are we looking at 3 weeks of looking at a different pattern in the relationship? At what point do you feel that it's healthy to approach with this as opposed to having more of an impatient?
Yeah, because we start to feel really urgent. So remember, you can have this conversation the moment you experience it. It doesn't mean you have to do anything.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean like, well, that's it. We're over. I'm walking out the door. Again, urgency is masculine energy. Making things happen quickly is your inner boy. And your girl is willing to say, hey, I've noticed that you've been withdrawing and pulling away. And I'm just, I'm feeling it. It feels really distant to me. And I want to feel connected again. And I want to feel that warm togetherness again. And I miss you and I miss connecting with you. Um, can you help me understand what's happening here? And if he goes, nothing, I'm fine, he shuts it down. Okay, accept his no. But then in a few more days, I'm noticing this coldness. What's going on? And so many men, and everyone, of course, but remember, men aren't raised in this culture to be okay with their emotions. So this passive aggressive type style of communication ends up happening where they can't really tell you what they're feeling because they don't want to hurt you. They don't want to suffer the consequence of telling you that. But at the same time, they're doing their due diligence to keep the relationship going and they just feel so trapped. And that's why women wake up one day and the guy is out the door and he's got an apartment and he's left because there's no in between space for them to find what they're feeling. And I call this my transparency talk, which is whatever's going on, lay it on me. I can handle it. I can handle the truth. I'm not going to flip out or anything. Is there someone else? You can ask that. Or I would like to know what's going on. We've always said we were going to be honest in this relationship. We've always said we were going to be transparent with one another. I love you. I love us. I love myself. I care about us. Help me understand what's going on. And you just open up that dialogue. And then immediately you want to just peel back. And I always tell everyone, if this doesn't pull you out of the moment too much, look at a clock. Just glance at the time, like on the stove clock or the microwave or whatever. And you want to make sure that he has all the time he needs to say whatever he needs to say. And even when he finishes speaking his last sentence, you want to pause and count to about 6 or 10 before you say something.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's really, really, really great advice. I love having you on the show, Adrienne. We're going to want to work with you because every situation is so unique. I mean, the advice you gave today is extremely helpful for me and my community, and I value your so much. So what are some of the best ways that people can find you? I mentioned your YouTube channel, and I'll have the link in the show notes. And how can people work with you?
Yeah, so I have a lot of self-study programs on my website, everheartcoaching.com. The most popular one I let everyone start with, I suggest everyone start with, is 500 Ways to Talk to a Man. This is an ebook that teaches you about how to find your feelings, find the essence of what you're feeling, and really connect and speak with a man so he can hear your heart, he can understand you and connect with you. And it also comes with a 2-day video class. And my other most popular program is called the ABCs to Get Him Back. It stands for Absolute Best Chances. And I give you the absolute best chances. This program has worked miracles. Not to oversell it, but anyone check out my Instagram. I have so many stories of people who have broken up, gotten back together, gotten remarried, or broken up, gotten engaged and married. I mean, just so many beautiful stories, because that program teaches you how to reconnect with yourself and become an invitation to the man, become an invitation for him to come back into your life slowly. So those are on my website, everheartcoaching.com. I have lots of other programs. I have a program for dating, and all sorts of fun stuff that anyone can choose from. And of course, my YouTube channel is active, and I have a Facebook group as well called I Heart Love Academy over on Facebook.
Adrienne Everheart, everyone, thank you so much for today. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for having me. I've had a great time.